Hi, I'm Rick Veenstra. I serve as Regional Executive for the Great Lakes region of the Reformed Church in America. And I've been saying for about a dozen years that the church in America has basically two choices: deep change or slow death. I've been saying it and saying it and saying it. Slow death is kind of obvious. Deep change is not so obvious. In fact, recently someone said to me, "Rick, what is deep change? What does that look like?" Well, I'm going to use the Cubs, Chicago Cubs, as an illustration from the sports world. In 2012, the Cubs lost 101 games out of 162. Just 4 years later, in 2016, when they actually won the World Series for the first time in 108 years, the Cubs in the regular season had 103 wins out of 162. How is it possible for a team to go from 100 losses in 1 year and 4 years later 100 wins? Well, it involved deep change. Two players were on both teams in 2012 and 2016 out of 25. 2 out of 25. A complete change took place. What else took place? Well, the players who are on this team, these are the lovable losers over here for about 100 years. This is the no-quit winners. And that's what they were, a team that did not quit no matter what. And it was a team that knew how to play defense, a team that knew how to run the bases, a team that knew how to take walks, to be patient in their at-bats, and a team that was very high in getting on base. You can't score runs in baseball unless you get on base. My point is, though this is only a game, it's only a sport, it's really just for fun, for them to go from 100 losses to 100 wins in 4 years required deep change. Well, what does that look like in the life of the Church of Jesus Christ? We've been on decline for more than a half century in the North American church. What is it going to take for us to move away from the slow death path to a transformational path where we actually move toward the Great Commission of Jesus Christ to make disciples of all nations? How are we going to do that? It's going to require, for almost all of our churches, deep transformational systemic change. For example, if a church has been building buildings, developing their campus, and over a period of time they change from that, they stop building buildings and they plant churches and more churches and more churches. That kind of change is deep change. Deep change. If, for example, a church has been staffing, paying for everything, if the church decides to make a shift and actually focus not on developing a paid staff, but developing disciples who make disciples, who make disciples, who make disciples, that's deep, systemic change. Very difficult to do, but it's important for the sake of the advance of the gospel. So, what I've learned about deep change is that in the sports world, it's a big deal. It's really hard to do this. To go from 100 losses to get to 100 wins in just 4 years is very difficult, requires phenomenal change. It is deeper change, harder change, and it takes longer than any of us think, at least than I thought. I've been at this for a bunch of years, and that's what I've learned. The change that is required is deeper, harder, and longer than we think, but it is worth it. It is worth the loss. It is worth the pain. It is worth the frustration. It is worth the tension. It is worth the conflict. It is worth the difficult conversations, because it moves us toward the fulfillment of the Great Commission which Jesus has given us. Thanks for letting me share this.